In order for a democracy to survive and not experience the transition into a fascistic state, it is absolutely essential that there be a media that is honest. Honest media is the key to maintaining a democracy. And yet we have one of the largest voices in America, Fox News, on a regular basis, putting forward lies or peddling hate and, bizarre stuff like the white replacement theory that is, animating stochastic terrorism, animating mass shooters. We have, this meme that Joe Biden is responsible for the price of gasoline right now, for example. Yesterday, I had a person who called up and said, well, it's because he won't do the Keystone Pipeline and he canceled the leases for the oil companies, which is exactly what Sean heard this morning on a local Sinclair station. A so-called reporter saying, well, word has it that Biden, gas prices are high because Biden canceled Keystone XL and you've got these leases that are not being renewed. Well, that has nothing to do with the price of oil right now. The oil industry is sitting on 9,000 leases that are going to be exploited over the next decade or two or three. And the number of leases they have doesn't have anything to do with the price of oil today. It takes years for a lease to be turned into a drilling operation and then for that drilling operation to get the oil to market. Years. And the Keystone XL pipeline is transporting tar sands oil. Ground up, I think it's pronounced bitumen or bitumen. Bitumen is called, whatever it is. It's basically ground up coal and tar that is mixed with an enormous amount of water. It's not made into gasoline. It's made into certain types of oil and lubricants, and it's made into diesel fuel, but it's not made into gasoline. And by the way, they're shipping it down to the Gulf Coast in Texas, and Louisiana, which is where the pipeline ends. Why? Why aren't they shipping it to like Michigan or Nebraska or something so that we can make gasoline and use it here in the United States? Because number one, it can't be used for gasoline. And number two, all of the refined products are being sent outside the United States, or a large portion of them. It's being exported, the refined products. We refine it on the Gulf Coast. We get the poisons and the cancers. And we ship the petroleum products to South America, to China, we ship it all over the world. But it has nothing to do with the price of oil. Neither of those things have to do with the price of oil or the price of gasoline right now. And yet, this is the meme that's out there. Meanwhile, BP, they just showed, their annual gross profit for 2021 was a 56% increase over 2020. It was $44 billion. And the 12 months ending March 31st of 2022 was $46 billion, a 23% increase year over year over the previous year. I mean, just their first quarter, ending March 13th of this year, was a 16% increase year over year, $15 billion. And by the way, when the Democrats proposed legislation that would have stopped oil and gas price gouging, there were 217 Democratic votes yes and 203 Republican votes no. 5 Republicans didn't vote, but every single Republican who voted no. We're not going to hold the oil companies accountable for price gouging. Every single Republican voted no. Just like when the Biden administration proposed $28 million for baby formula, to ship baby formula around the United States. The Republicans voted no. 192 Republicans voted no. Only 12 Republicans voted yes on that, and 219 Democrats. When veterans' benefits were before the U.S. House of Representatives, 174 Republicans voted no. Lowering the cost of insulin was before the House of Representatives. 193 Republicans voted no. Only 12 voted yes on lowering the price of insulin. But do you know about this? Is our media reporting that the Republicans every day, every time they have an opportunity, are voting against the interests of America? If they are, if the media is reporting this stuff, I'm not seeing it. Over at CNN, Chris Licht is now in charge. A fascinating piece on Mediaite.com today saying that his priority is to have the network focus on straight newscasting and truth-telling. What does that mean? It means no more partisan voices. Let me just read from this. The report suggests that Licht, this is from Mediaite.com, that Licht isn't completely against personality programming, but he wants to ensure that partisan voices don't dominate in a way that harms CNN. Axios also notes that Jim Acosta and Brian Stelter have become magnets for conservative critics, slamming CNN for a left-leaning slant on the network. Right. So CNN is under the hammer, as it were. Meanwhile, we just heard from Fox News, they're not going to carry Thursday's hearings. They're going to carry their normal lineup of Tucker and friends instead. What does this tell us about what's going on over at Fox News? Well, clearly it's a partisan operation. And they are supportive of an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States. This network that is owned by an Australian family, largely, is supportive of overthrowing democracy in the United States, as far as I can tell. If they're, you know, if they've been trash talking this. I mean, Tucker Carlson on Monday night, last night, he said, "How grotesque a joke is the January 6th committee? Well, Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi have hired the producer from Good Morning America not to do a prostate health update, but to put together a primetime show trial this Thursday. There are a lot of questions," he said, unanswered from January 6th, a lot. We'll tell you. We'll tell them to you at 8 p.m. on Thursday. In other words, Tucker Carlson is going to counter-program against the January 6th hearings. We have now what's called pink slime media. I mean, there are these websites popping up all over the place that look like they are like local newspapers. Like the West Cook News. Cook County is Chicago, right? The West Cook News published a story that said that a suburban Chicago school was going to be giving students different grades depending on their race. Quote, "Oak Park and River Forest High School administrators will require teachers next year to adjust their classroom grading scales to account for the skin color or ethnicity of its students in an effort to equalize test scores among racial groups." End quote. This is what the West Cook News published. And you look at the website and you think, oh, it's a local Chicago newspaper. No, it's not. It's a right-wing disinformation site. This never happened. This is a complete lie, or at least a large lie based on, you know, a discussion that was held, but no decision to do this was ever made. Andrew Sullivan tweeted it out, and it reached millions and millions. In fact, already it's all over the right-wing media. It's all over the right-wing media universe. They got names like the Des Moines Sun and the Illinois Valley Times. They're calling these now pink slime sites. You know, pink slime pretends to be meat but isn't. These pretend to be news but aren't. How can we have a democracy if we don't have a media that tells the truth? We used to have the fairness doctrine. And before the internet, it was, you know, if you wanted to start a newspaper, you had to actually have a newspaper, and you had to print them, and you had to distribute them. And yeah, there was a lot of right-wing stuff out there. The John Birch Society had a newspaper. I used to read it when I was 13, 14 years old. These things existed, but you knew what they were. You knew the right-wing propaganda was right-wing propaganda. Today, it pretends to be actual news, to be real newspapers. How does a democracy survive in the face of this? I'm not sure it can. What are we going to do about it? Well, that's a hell of a challenge, given the First Amendment. You can say anything you want. You have an absolute right to lie. And then you've got programs like Brian Stelter on CNN who call out lies like this, and now CNN is thinking that maybe he should be pulled?